Alright guys, it's Jahlon with the Paradox Gaming Network, and today we're going to do Ashes 101 on nodes. This is going to be the Introduction to Nodes Part 1 up to Level 3. Now I know some of you are going to say, Jay, you've already done Ashes 101 on nodes. That's right, I have. You're about to see in a second. But this is your 2019 update. We got really spoiled in March. We got a ton of new information from Intrepid. We got so much information that I didn't feel like I could do a this has changed, this has changed, this has changed video. Reason why is we get a lot of people coming to the community every day, and they need a place that they can go and learn this stuff, clean slate with no other previous information. And even if you have some previous information, the way I present this, you may find a couple of bits and pieces that you didn't know about. I will always, of course, recommend that if you haven't done so already, go to the Ashes of Creation website. Make sure you check out the blogs and the video directly, because if you have some past information back there, you're going to say, Jay, that's not right. And then I'm going to be like, yeah, but it's in the blogs. So it's worth it to go check those out so you get it from the horse's mouth, and then you can see how I present it. I'm going to call this your outside reading, because if you're new here, if you're one of those new people coming to the community, I do things in a very educational framework. That's why it's called Ashes 101. I'm the lecturer, and my website, ashes101.com, that's kind of your textbook. So if you want more information, there's about 8 pages of information there that you can go and check out. Alrighty, so this is nodes. So the baseline question is, what are nodes? Well, let's get it directly from the blog. Nodes are the heart of the world. They create the ebb and flow of life. At their core, nodes are preset points in the world, wrapped in a zone of influence, and surrounded by geographic areas that change over time based on player participation. That sounds great, but what does that mean? What it means is that nodes are really the foundation of the world. All other features branch off of nodes. This happens all the time. Somebody asks me a question about Ashes of Creation, and I try to start to explain it. And I can never explain a topic without having to interlace it back to the node system. So you get, for example, people ask me about housing in Ashes, and I say, yeah, your local node has to be a certain level. People say, well, node sieges you talked about in the PvP video. Well, obviously node sieges are going to be node related. But then we get into the questions of why you want a siege or why I want a node built. Well, if you don't understand those things, you don't understand the first thing about nodes. If you want to buy, trade, sell, craft goods, all of this stuff is done in nodes. It's either done in the node proper or it's done in a freehold, but you still need the node to be a certain level to do those activities at that spot. Now, a lot of people always ask the question, well, how does the node system differ from other games? What makes it different? Well, in most other games, when the designers design the game, they have zones in mind, and they set the levels of the zone so that you know where you're supposed to be. Now, sometimes it takes an outside player map to build the map to let you know where you should go at a certain level. And some developers just go ahead and put it on their map directly, like, hey, if you're not level 12, you shouldn't be in the Lost City yet, so don't go there before level 12. If you're level 19 and you're still in the Lost City, well, it's time for you to move on. The problem with that sort of design is that you end up with your character spawning at some arbitrary spawn point, and then you usually do a little bit of light questing, and then you come up to your first area of civilization. From that area of civilization, you always get directed to the next point of interest on the theme park map, and then you get directed to the next one. And sometimes I've seen in games as low as level 16, you're already at your headquarters for your faction or your race or your nation or whatever have you. So this is it for the rest of the game. You operate out of something you find in the first few hours, maybe the first day of gameplay. Ashes of Creation isn't going to be like that. This is what the Ashes of Creation world looks like from a mechanical point of view. Now, you're not going to see those grid lines or those dots, but they are very important. What you're focusing on right now is in the upper right-hand corner, and you're focusing on this thing right there. You're focusing on that Divine Gate. Now, you'll see the area around the Divine Gate doesn't have those hash marks. That's because those areas have minimal starting camps for new players when we first arrive. Now, I could go into more about this because the Divine Gates are a lore-rich story behind Ashes of Creation. I normally don't do lore stuff, but if you guys feel you need me to roll up all the lore for you to understand the game a bit better, I will, of course, do that. Just leave comments below, and if there's enough of them, I'll do that for you guys. So, the world of Verra and how nodes function. How exactly do nodes interact? How do we interact with them? Well, first of all, what you have to understand, the world, Verra, is 480 square kilometers. And then there's an additional 100 square kilometers of Underrealm. That's one thing that you're going to have to understand. There's the Underrealm exists, and it has had a sort of significant design change. So if you're looking at node information from prior to March 2019, you might stumble upon some facts that are incorrect. I'm not going to tell you what those facts are because I don't want to confuse you. I'm just going to say make sure you check the dates on your sources. Now, what I will say is every inch of land falls under a zone of influence. You guys are going to see this in just a few minutes. The immediate ocean belongs to the node. So the zones of influence, those extend past the shoreline a little bit. Now, there was some talk in the live stream this week about the deep water, international waters may be free of the zone of influence. They may not. The whole world may be. They're still in like the final design wrap up. But everything you do is going to be designed or influenced by the node system. Events, bosses, etc. Even stuff out on the ocean is still going to be affected by the node system. Now, before we jump into the mechanics, we got to do some key terminology, specifically the ones for world divisions. And this is a little bit newer information if you're just checking in on Ashes in the last couple of months. First and foremost, castle regions. The world is divided into 5 regions, and these regions are ruled by castles. These regions, the castle regions, are fixed and static. They do not change. I do want to point out that castles are ruled by guilds. Now, I will talk about castles and their dynamics in their own video, but just realize your node system falls under the castle region heading. These are different from zones of influence. Zones of influence are what the regions are divided up into. There are 103 zones of influence. There are 103 different potential node locations, but these are fluid and shift. And I will actually get into a little bit of the fluidity in part 2 of this series. But this fluidity is based on node level. And inside that zone of influence is a node spot that can and may develop. Now, the reason why I say can and may develop, and it's underlined, is because it's a key point. It's a key concept. Every node has the potential to become level 6. It's not like certain nodes are predetermined to be Metropolis. Any node can go to level 6. So the correct way to say it is every node may reach level 6, but not every node can reach level 6 at the same time. There are a lot of rules that determine which nodes can level to what level, when they can level, and of course those are capped at 5 Metropolis per server. So let's take a look at how these two concepts work together. Now, this is just my visual map. This is not a graphical representation of what Intrepid intends for Verra. This is for me, Howard Gardner, Multiple Modes of Intelligence. Got those visual learners out there. So what you have is you have 5 castles and you have 5 color-coded regions. These will not shift. These are fixed and static. Now what we're going to do is we're going to introduce just one node to show how the zones of influence change. And then we'll get into the mechanics a little bit later about the specificity of that. So what we're going to do is we're going to introduce a level 3 village onto our map. And with that level 3 village, you'll see that it has a zone of influence. You'll also notice that zone of influence starts off about the same size as the hex grid that it's in. Now what we're going to do is we're going to level that node up to a town. So we take it away and you see it grows a little bit, but you're also going to see that its zone of influence is going to expand. Now, accept this for what it is right now. This is the big picture view. We're going to get into the weeds in a second about how this works. So you'll see that that zone of influence is now significantly bigger. It's also affecting nearby hex grids, which means it's affecting nearby nodes or nearby potential nodes. We're going to do this one more time. We're going to level it up again. So you see it got bigger. You're also going to see that its zone of influence got bigger. Now, as we move on, before we jump into the mechanics, the real meat of it, I do want to lay out a couple of rules. One of those is that servers will develop very different stories. And what that means is that node that we were showing, on server 1, it might be a village. On server 2, it might be a town. On server 3, it might be a city. That means if you jump from server to server and you go to that XY location, you're like, well, on my server, this is a city. Well, you're right. On your server, it's a city. Your server told a story. The other thing is on some servers, this node may not even exist. This node may never reach level 1. One fixed rule that does exist, no matter what server you're on, if you're at that XY location, that server, that node will be the same type. So if it's military on server 1, it will be a military node on every server. Now, hopefully that gives you the conceptual part of that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get into how the node system actually works to the best of our understanding. Before we jump into this, I do want to say Intrepid Studios reserves the right to make any changes to the system. Therefore, if it changes, I will of course just redo this video. So this is what your game map is going to look like. You're looking at it. You don't see any of those grid lines because you as a player are going to interact with the map as the map. What the server is doing in the back end, though, is all those dots, those black dots, those indicate the potential node locations. And those grid lines, those represent the zones of influence. So we as a player come in a game, and there we are. We're standing right here in this spot, and what we're doing is we're killing fanglers, and we're adventuring, and the world is void. There's no civilization out here. We have ventured away from the Divine Gate. We are away from the starter area, so there is nothing out here. There is no town defined. There is no anything defined. It is a world that hasn't been touched in thousands of years. And then, of course, you got some people out here doing some fishing. You got some people out here mining. You got some people out here chopping down trees. And this is going on all around us. But what the server is doing is the server is registering XP gain by that fisher, by that miner, by that forester, by me. I'm killing the fanglers. And what the server says is your zone of influence has accumulated enough experience that you have an expedition. NPCs are going to arrive, and it's basically going to be what you see. It's going to be tents and a fire in the middle. It's not going to be insta-pop, ta-da, you got a city. Now, you'll notice the red lines extending from that stage 1 node. Interesting part about Ashes is, because that stage 1 node now exists, it exerts its influence on its neighbors. So, zones of influence A, B, C, and D, and the potential node inside of those are all now blocked out. They cannot level from 0 to 1 because a nearby node is blocking them. Unfortunately, since this is stage 1, anybody who decided, I really want a node in zone of influence B, you don't really have a recourse at the moment. You can't force the stage 1 node into atrophy. You can't siege it because it's not stage 3. So you're kind of limited to just making sure your node area is getting developed the best you can, but you might have to cross over the boundary line, earn some XP in that teal area, so that then the teal area node can go to stage 2. When this goes to stage 2, it removes the block temporarily on nearby nodes. So what I did for this example is the nodes in zones of influence B and D were the two that won the race. All of those 4 zones of influence and the nodes inside of them, when the block was removed, they were off to the races. Who can level up first? Now you'll notice there's no arrows at the moment coming from anything, but the moment those 2 stage 1 nodes pop up, and I'm doing it at identical times, most likely wouldn't happen identically, but what they'll do is they'll start exerting their will against what are still stage 0 nodes nearby. Those nodes in A and C are yet again blocked from leveling up to stage 1 because those nearby stage 1 nodes are exerting now their will. Now, the stage 2 node, it doesn't care about the level 0 nodes. But what it is doing, it will, just like it did before, it will exert its control over the stage 1 nodes, and those stage 1 nodes can't go to stage 2 until the stage 2 node goes to stage 3. Now, I want you guys to realize, all of this is going on, and the node is still level 2. Now, what I don't want to do today is I don't want to just keep going. I'm going to break here, and then I'm going to do a second video about all the things that happen at level 3, because there are a lot of things that happen at level 3. The politics start, the housing starts, sieges start, but most importantly, the vassal system starts, and this is the next step of nodes exerting their will. So what I want you to do is I want you to digest that, ask any questions that you have for what we've presented so far, and then I'm already working on the next part of this video, but it is difficult to try to make the vassal system easily understandable, given that we don't have all of those mechanics yet. So that is it for today, guys. I highly encourage you, bebop over to ashes101.com. Read the section on nodes. I have a lot there. And then leave comments. If there's stuff you guys want to know, something I didn't cover today, I will either tell you it's in the Ashes 101 nodes I've already done, or I will make sure to get your questions answered direct. And if it's something that you're asking about level 3 and above, I might not have already put it on the storyboard, so you might be helping me make the next video better. If you guys want to talk to me more, you can get me on Discord. I'm Jahlon, #0001. I stream 3 times a week. Can't stream Ashes right now. Nobody can. But if you got an Ashes question, you can swing by anytime I'm streaming and ask. I want to say thank you to all my sponsors. Without these guys, I wouldn't be able to do giveaways. You probably have 1 day left on the current giveaway. I will put it in the description below, so make sure to sign up for that. And then I need your guys' help. I'm trying to get to 4,300 subscribers by April 21st. There is a reason for that number and that date. Once we make it, I'll tell you why. If we get to April 22nd and we haven't made it, I'll tell you why I wanted to do that. So subscribe, ring the bell, so you know when I do more content. You guys take care, and I will see you when we do part 2 of this, level 3 and beyond. Hey, where are you going? You're not done yet. See these videos? There's videos up here to watch. You gotta go over here. Hit the chibi. Subscribe to the channel. Check out the webpage. And I'll see you guys on Twitch.